Hi everyone, this lesson is an introduction to functions. As you can see, functions do some stuff for us. Let's take a look. When we're declaring a function, we'll first use the function keyword, and then we'll give our function a name. The name you give your function should be appropriate for what it's doing. So in this case, I'm going to issue a welcome. So that's why my function is called welcome. Often they'll be called verbs because verbs are actions, and functions are the same thing. They perform an action. So in this simple function, all we're doing is we're writing out hello mister. Down here is where we call the function. If I comment this out and I refresh, there's nothing. But if we take this out, here the function exists and here the function is getting called. Let's take a look. And it outputs hello mister. Let's take a look at another function. This function is called welcome1, and the function is taking one parameter. This function didn't take any parameters. So why do we need a parameter here? Well, sometimes functions, or in order for them to do something for us, they need a little bit of information. And in this case, this welcome1 function, it needs this information. Okay, what's the greeting? So down here, I call this function and I pass in the parameter, which is a string of what's up. So this function's getting called, this is getting passed into here, then we're writing it out. Whatever I wrote here is going to go right here, and then we're going to concatenate on Mr. Let's take a look. And now instead of saying hello mister, it says what's up mister. So you can see I could have changed this to anything. I could have wrote write how's it going, and that's going to change. Okay, it's going to update with the parameter that's passed into it. Alright. Keep going. This next function is called welcome2, and it takes two parameters. So if your function takes more than one parameter, we should separate it with a comma. And this is the same sort of deal. Calling the function, passing in this data, passing in this data. Two things here, two things here. Looks good. Let's take a look. And now it says, what's up, Anthony? Okay. You can see how that works. Let's look at another function. This function is called add, very appropriately. It takes two parameters, a and b, and now we're not going to write it out, we're going to return it. Okay, let's take a look. So right now nothing will happen because we didn't call the function. Let's call it. So it's getting called right here, and it's getting passed a 2 and a 3. And then because this function returns a value, what we're going to do is we're going to run it, we're going to get it returned, then we're going to store that inside sum, and then we're going to write out sum. There's a 5. Now you might be wondering, what was the point of this, to store it in here and then write it out? We could have just wrote it out in our function. Well, we're not always going to want to just output our stuff to the browser. Sometimes we're going to want to store it in a database, or we're going to do whatever with it. We're going to do an AJAX request with it. Alright, so that's why sometimes we just want to return something and then we're going to store it or whatever. Okay. Here, a new variable sum2. Sum2 is set to the function of add, and here we're passing in 3 parameters. Well, this doesn't look right because this function add2, where is it? The function add is only set up to take 2 parameters, but here we're passing in 3 parameters. And in some programming languages, this would cause an error, but in JavaScript, it doesn't cause an error. And what's going to happen is the function is going to take this 2 and 3 that it wants, and it's going to ignore this one. And we're going to see that the output is exactly the same. And there's 5. Okay, so this just gets ignored in JavaScript. We could have put more, 56. Okay, no difference. Next up is this function, add v2. taking two parameters. The first thing we're going to do is we're going to write out A, we're going to write out B, and then after that we're going to return A plus B. And here we are calling the function, but we're only passing it in one parameter. It needed two, we're only passing in one. And then we're doing a rule tag here, or HR tag. Let's take a look. And here it's telling us that A is 2, B is undefined. And then here it's returning 2 plus undefined, whatever that does. Okay, so when we don't pass it enough parameters, the one that it needed will be set to undefined. And what that does to your function, I don't know. That could be good. It will probably be bad. But this is, writing this, it shows us what it did. It makes B undefined. And let's do a little bit more with this. So here, what I'm doing, remember that this function returns a value. It returns A plus B. So here we're just we're writing that out. Okay, let's see what happens there. So what happens here is same as before. It tells us what A is, it tells us what B is, but because this returns a value and then we're writing out that value, here we saw that we get NaN, which is not a number. Okay, so as you can see, in this case, undefined did bad things to our program. But we can also see that 2 plus undefined equals not a number. All right. So down here, I want to talk to you about variable scope. Here we have a function called SumName. We're setting a variable in it called myName, and that's set to a string of Anthony. Then we're writing that out. Because I have the var keyword here, this myName right here is going to be a local variable, if I can spell that. So a local variable means this variable, myName, exists only within this function. It has local scope. And let's check it out. So that worked fine. I'm calling SumName, it's going up here, it's writing this, I'm telling it to, we're setting the variable, we're writing it out, okay, no problem. But what if I do now, what if I want to do this? Oops. Okay, can I write it out now? We have this variable here, can I just write it out like normal? And nothing happens. We actually lost our HR tag because we have an error, I believe. Let's see what it says. Uncaught reference name. My name is not defined. Okay, so when we're outputting this, this doesn't even exist right now. It doesn't exist in the global scope. It only exists in the local scope of the function. And we even got an error in our script. If I remove this var keyword, now it's going to create this variable in the global scope. Let's take a look. Now we got 2 Anthonys, and we got our HR, and we have no more errors in this program. Okay, so that's the difference between local and global scope. Right? Let's put our var back, and that's this is going to be a local variable. Let's look at some more stuff. Here, now we're declaring this variable, the name, Bob, okay, just a regular string we're setting up. This is a global variable, so it's going to be available to us everywhere in our program, including inside functions. This function, another name, I don't know what I'm doing here, let's see. Okay, so the name is set to Bob. This is a global variable. Here we're setting it again inside the function. It's set to Bobby. And here we're calling the function. Let's see what that does. And we got an error. Let's see why we got an error. My name is not defined. Right? Oh, because of up here. So let's comment this out. Alright, that was causing an error because remember, we set it back to a local scope Let's refresh, no more errors. And here we got the output of Bobby. So the name was set to Bob here, but inside the function it was set to Bobby. So this variable is going to take precedence because it's inside the function. If we just comment this out, we're running the function, it's telling it to write out the name. Let's see what happens now. And it outputs Bob. So this wasn't in the local scope anymore. So what it did was we told it to write it out. It first looked in the global scope and it found it here and it output Bob. Okay, let me put that back. And what am I doing here? Here just writing out name is, okay, the name is Bobby, but if we put the var keyword in front and make this a local variable here, now when we write this out, this is going to change to Bob because now it's looking in the global scope and that exists here. Okay, keep going. I want to talk a bit about nesting functions. So we can put a function inside of a function. Function hypotenuse takes two parameters a and b, and then the next thing it's going to do is, well, basically there's a function that exists inside the function. So this is the function name. It takes two parameters. Inside of it is another function, and here we're going to return. This is part of the this is the math object in JavaScript, and this is a method of the math object. We haven't looked at that stuff yet, but anyways, so what are we doing here? Well, we need to run this square function on A, and where is it? And we need to run the square function on B too. Well, where is it going to find this? Well, this function is inside. It's inside our function here. So we're in. All of this is inside the hypotenuse function. We set up the function here, and then we are running the function right here and right here. So it's going to here, it's getting the information here, and it's returning something plus returning something. Down here we have this variable hyp is set to hypotenuse function, taking 4 and 3 as the parameters, and then we're just writing out this variable. Let's see what happens. And we get 5. Okay, hypotenuse of 4 and 3 is 5. What's next? Here I create a function called triple. It takes one parameter x, and what it returns is 3 times x, right? So I just want to triple a number. So I'm going to go 3 multiply that number. var1 is set to this function. Okay, and then here what we're doing is we're calling the function here, and we're passing in the parameter of 4, writing it out. Okay, and 12. So the reason I did this was just to show you guys something. So this variable here, var1, is being set to a function. So then what you know is this is a function now. So because this is a function, we can pass it a parameter, and it will do what it's supposed to do, which is return a value right here. So look closely at that and try to have that make sense to you. This is a function now. This is this function, so that means we can pass it a parameter. It will do what it's supposed to do. var2 is set to an unnamed function. So this is the first time we're looking at unnamed functions. It has no name, but it still takes a parameter, and it will return y times y. This is a function literal is an expression that defines an unnamed function. Okay, so this is a function literal here. Writing it out, so var2, and we're passing it a 5. Let's take a look. 25. Okay. Next one, function quadruple x, return 4 times whatever. Var a is set to quadruple 5. All right, so we're passing in this is the quadruple function. We're passing in a 5 because it returns 4 times x. That means a is going to be 20 now. Here b is set to quadruple. So if I just do this, b is set to quadruple, that means b is set to this quadruple function. And I'm actually going to just put a comment right here. So let's take a look at this. We're going to write out the type of quadruple, and then we're going to write out the type of b, and we're going to see if they're the same or not. And we see that they are. Quadruple is a function, and now b is a function. Now down here, var c is set to b, and we're passing it in a 10, right? Remember, b is the function now. We're passing in a 10. Now we're setting that to c. So that means if we write out c here, we're going to get 40. Alright, thanks for listening.